wife Shirley and I have lived for 4 years in Williams Village. I'm a member of the Furl Work Group, and you have tuned into a program offered by the Free University of River Landing. The program today is the first in a series of discussions with River Landing staff in an attempt to allow you to get to know them better. The next in the series will be next Wednesday, the 28th, not this Wednesday, but Wednesday of next week, the 28th, at 3 p.m. with Kim Massey and Cindy Hawk. Today we are fortunate to have with us two individuals I am sure you already know, at least in part. Tom Smith, Executive Director of River Landing, and Lisa Waite, Associate Director of River Landing. And I have a few questions for them.
Now, Jerry, before you start, though, we need to say that next week's show is dependent on how well we do today. Isn't that right?
It is.
Yeah.
So shine, please.
So we got to shine, Lisa.
We're in trouble.
We're in trouble already.
First of all, thank you all for being here. It's great.
Well, thanks for asking us.
What's your name? And how did you get your first name? And is there a second name that we should know? And how would you have gotten that?
Okay. Well, that's an interesting question. Before I was born, my mom and dad had decided I was going to be Rhonda Renee.
Oh.
As soon as I was born, they looked at me and they said, she is not a Rhonda Renee. I don't know how they knew that as a baby. I was born on Christmas Eve, and I was delivered to my mom. They actually put me in a stocking and presented me to my mom after I was born. So that's kind of a cool story. So you'd think I would get like a Christmas name or something, but no, ended up with Lisa Lynn.
Okay.
So that's my official name. Then when I got married, I replaced the Lynn with my maiden name of Haas. So that's how I got my name.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a different story.
Yeah. So I'm named after both my grandfathers. So Thomas was my father's first name, and Anthony is my middle name. So that was my mother's father's name. So that's how I got my name.
Pretty cool.
Thomas Anthony Smith. So, and growing up, I was called a lot of different things, but I was called Tommy or Tom. When I was in trouble, it was Thomas Anthony, and then TT and Tommy Tony, and you name it, I was named. So that's probably why I spent a lot of time away from home. Because I got called a lot of different names, so I didn't know who I really was back in those days. So.
Well, tell us something about the family you grew up with.
Sure. I grew up on a farm in Wisconsin, so very different from where I am now, but I grew up with two younger sisters, so there was, 7 or 8 years between me and my middle sister, and then my younger sister came along 14 months later, so they were very close. But we had a dairy farm and grew up in the country, so had good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I grew up in Maryland. I was one of 5 children, and my younger brother and I was the fourth out of 5. My younger brother and I was oops 1 and he was oops 2 because we were not supposed to be. So, and my parents by then, after and I haven't had this experience because I've only had 3 children, but, I think after you have multiple children, you start losing, what their names are. So, by the time they would start to try and yell at us and they would start calling me.
A whole list of names?
They went through the whole list before they would get to me. So a lot of times I was just, damn it, I would just say, damn it, get over here. That's what my father used to say all the time was, just. Anyway, so, but, we, it was a good family, but there was a lot of years between my sister and I. When I say a lot, didn't seem like a ton, but there was 6 years difference between us. And so it was kind of like 2 families. My 2 older sisters and my older brother were kind of one little family, and then my younger brother and I we kind of started the family over a little bit. So, but it was, I have nothing but really good memories most of the time. Except for my mother's wooden spoon that she would use to discipline with us. I was really, and some of you might be able to relate to that. All she had to do was go rattle the drawer, and that would get me in line, I can tell you that much. So
I was a pretty good kid, so I didn't get spankings or anything like that, but I did get my mouth washed out with soap several times. As I was a teenager, I was kind of mouthy. I'm not sure where that came from.
Yeah.
But yes, I had the soap in the mouth kind of thing. That was the biggest punishment, I would say.
You know, that would, just now that I know you, it's kind of hard to believe that that's
I
the
know.
case.
Who would think I was mouthy?
Yeah, I know. Well, I guess all those mouth cleanings worked.
Oh, and it was so, it's an awful taste. It's awful, but I kept doing it anyway. I don't know. You don't learn when you're a teenager.
I know one time my mother came after me with a wooden spoon, and I went underneath I had a full bed that I was sleeping in. I went underneath the full bed so that she couldn't reach me underneath the bed. And she said, you know, when you come out, I'm going to give it to you. And I said, well, I'm never
not
coming out. Yeah, those were good old days.
Well, does that carry over in your present families? Tell us about your present families.
I am married to my husband, Chris, and we've talked a little bit on the river churns. We recently moved to a new house, so I've talked about him a little bit. I also have two stepchildren, Max and Lily, and my daughter Lily, she actually bought our house not too long ago. That's how we moved to Clemens. We bought a new house, so. And Max decided since his work is in High Point, he now lives with Lily and her husband. So
That's cool.
So it's kind of a big family thing there. I never had any biological children, but Lily and Max have been my children from day one. So
Lisa, you
love
have
them very much.
2 homes.
Well, I have a mobile home as well, which is an RV. When the pandemic hit, the RV seemed to be the safest way to travel and vacation. Mm-hmm. So now my husband and I go, in the beginning it was every weekend we would go to some campsite and just set up the RV, and you're kind of on your own and you're in your own home, so you don't have to worry about pandemic and all that good stuff. So you're right, we do kind of have 2 homes right now.
It's pretty cool, actually.
Yep,
It's a
very
vacation
cool.
home, but it's a mobile vacation
It
home.
is,
Yeah.
it is, yep.
And so my wife Sheila and I, as a matter of fact, this next August we'll have been married 25 years. And so I've got, matter of fact, my son, who's the oldest, is 21 today. He's 21 years old. So
Wow.
it's hard to believe.
Wow.
And I know a lot of residents here who have children say it goes by fast. It really does seem like it just goes by so fast. He's 21. My daughter's 18, and she's going on 36. And then, I think most of you know this, but we adopted a child in the last year and a half, and he is a sophomore in high school right now. So, and he's doing well. Dakota is his name. So it's the 3 of us. My older son's living at UNCG in an apartment and going to school there. I don't understand this, but I guess he just wanted to be away from us because he goes to 1 class a week at UNCG, and the rest of them are virtual. So I'm not sure how I got talked into this situation where I'm paying for him to be in an apartment somewhere so that he could go 1 class a week. But anyway,
He must
that's
have been
another
very
story.
convincing.
Obviously, he was very convincing. And so my daughter, who is at UNCG as well now this year, is studying nursing, and she's the smart one of the family. She got my wife's intelligence, not mine, apparently. So she's the smart one. And Dakota and I just kind of hang out together and just do some things. So it's he's a big sports person. So it's fun.
What does he play?
He plays soccer. That's his big sport, is soccer. But he's played baseball before, and he's talking about trying out for basketball too. He's pretty tall. It's amazing how much he's grown in the last couple of years since we've had him. Because I had no idea how big he was going to get, but he's as big as my older son, Jay. I mean, they're both probably now 6'3", I guess. So, and my poor wife, she was thinking that she didn't want to be the shortest in the
Right.
family, but
Still the shortest,
she's
right?
still the shortest now. So, but it's fun.
Good. What did you want to be when you were growing up? And did it meet your parents' expectations?
You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Sure. So all growing up, I wanted to be a beautician. I'm not sure where that came from, but I just knew I was going to style people's hair. I started out with my Barbies, our Barbie dolls, was doing their hair. I would frequently cut their hair. I don't think my mom really appreciated that, because then she'd have to buy me new Barbies because the hair doesn't grow back. So that was always interesting. And then I decided I want to be a teacher. So this was probably maybe when I was in 7th, 8th grade. Then I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And then by the end of high school, after you go really you start to learn more about yourself, and you go through the guidance counselors and everything. I knew I wanted to be able to serve and help people in some way. And so then went on to college and became a social worker. So that's where I ended
Wow.
up, from beautician to social worker.
Go figure,
It's
huh?
quite a realm there.
Well, I can
but,
see the relationship there.
but beauticians do listen to people,
Yeah,
and
they do.
social workers
Yeah,
listen to
yeah, see?
people. So I think there's something about that.
That works.
Yes.
That
Yep,
works.
absolutely.
I was trying to think about what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I think I went through the typical boy stuff, fireman, policeman, and then it was football player, baseball player, those kinds of things. And then I realized I'm not good enough in sports to be able to be anything like that. And, I was a little troublesome when I was a young boy, so I figured that police and fire department weren't for me either, so I had to start looking for something else. So in high school, I had a teacher who led me to accounting.
Oh,
And so I was determined I was going to be an accountant. And I
Wow.
actually, my degree is in business, but it's a minor in accounting. And I lasted all of 6 months in public accounting. I realized this is not
that's
for
not
me.
for you.
So, it's funny how life just kind of turns around. I did real estate for a while, and I was working for, back in those days, that was the Cold War days, when I first started out working. I was working for a defense contractor up in Maryland, and they made tanks and armored machines and all kinds of different things. And so that was really very interesting for me. And so, and I was doing taxes too. And so I just was a litany of different
Everything,
things.
right.
And it's funny, though, because I had a friend of mine who was the director of nursing in a retirement community in Baltimore, Maryland. And there was a position that became open as assistant director of finance. And so she said, I really think this would be a great industry for you. And so I applied for it, got the job. And, the funny thing is, now that have moved through all the different levels at this point and gotten to be executive director, I use the things that I was doing back then. The real estate has come in really handy with me. The accounting has come in really handy with me. All these different things that I was learning along the way all came into, even the taxes even came in handy as a part of being able to do this role. So it's funny how God leads you through certain things, and you don't maybe know why you're doing certain things at certain times, but then every once in a while we get a chance to see, I get it now. This is why I did these things. It's because this made me be a better person for this job to be able to take care of this community. So it kind of worked out pretty cool.
What has surprised you most about the role here, your role here at River Landing?
We have a surprise every day, don't we?
It's amazing to me how many great people that we have here. I guess it's amazing that we have so many amazing people that really are all wanting to work together in different ways, whether it's on residents or staff, yet we all can come together for a common goal.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see that. Because you wouldn't always think that. We have over 600 people here, 600 residents,
Yeah.
and then you add another 350 of employees. So we have almost 1,000 people on this campus at all different times.
Right.
But we still have a common goal
Yeah.
of serving each other.
Yeah.
Residents serve back as well to staff members. It's a give and take, and it's amazing to see that here.
Related to that, because I was thinking about this question a little bit too. And I don't know if it's a surprise, but I guess you could look at it this way. I remember, I've had the good fortune, as a matter of fact, Thursday I'll be here 18 years at River Landing. And, I was here, obviously, most of you know this, but I was here before the community actually opened its doors. And so I remember those early days and being nervous about, what's this community going to be like? when we started hiring staff members, and were we going to be able to get staff members to help us to be able to open up the community? And then, once we added residents in, what was the culture of the community going to feel like? What was it going to be like? And so I remember, and I do this every year at the employee Christmas party when we have staff that are lined up all on the back, and we've got a ton of residents in the front, and they're all there to see the staff get their checks from the residents, which, by the way, that just blows me away. That's a whole nother story. But I sit there and I go, every year I sit there and go and kind of pinch myself and say, every year I wonder, what's the next year going to bring? What's the next year going to be like? What is this community going to be like in another year? And I sit there in amazement and think about how blessed we are and how great a community we have here. You said it. We've got incredible residents here who really just engage staff members and engage each other. And we love to see that, especially now with the Wellness Center, we're seeing all that happening, right? We're seeing even more of it. Just loving that engagement and just feeling the love and the warmth of the community and just feeling the culture of this community. I don't know how we could have gotten a better situation than what we have here now. And I know it's not perfect, and I know that, things go wrong, all I got to do is mention the word spectrum, and people go, oh, but the reality is, really, if you sit back and think about each of us, I think, can sit back in our chairs, residents and staff alike, and just say, you know what, we're better because we've had River Landing as part of our home or as part of the place that we work in our lives, and so that's what makes me happy. That was the surprise that came to me, was coming to that realization.
But I think most residents feel that way.
I think they do too.
Yeah. They do.
Yeah.
What is, you have very full professional lives, you have very full home lives. What are your hobbies?
Do we have any hobbies?
I was going to say, Tom and I do share one of the hobbies.
You got me into this,
Right?
Lisa. You and your husband, Chris, got me into this.
My husband was the big one that started it, I think. Well, actually, it was my dad that started it. It was probably, is it a year and a half ago or 2 years ago now, went back home, which home for me is now Minnesota. It used to be Wisconsin.
You don't say that right. It's Minnesota.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
So went back home for summer vacation. I usually go up every week of 4th of July. I go back home with my parents, and my dad says, you got to try something. And I'm like, oh boy. When he says that, I never know what it's going to be. Come with me to play pickleball.
Oh.
And I'm like, pickleball? I don't even know what is pickleball? So I go and try it with him, and I loved it. It was just a sport I was able to do. I'm not very sporty, never was. And it was just a sport I picked up on pretty easily, came back. I told my husband, I said, we have to go play pickleball. And he's like, pickleball? Nobody knows what pickleball is. So we found a court in High Point, we went and we played. Then he got hooked on it. He got even more hooked than I.
Yeah,
I mean,
he got obsessed with it.
He got pretty obsessed with it, and he's really, really good at it.
He is good at it.
Yeah.
He's very good.
So then I introduced it to Tom and some of the other members here at River Landing, and then we all play it. And then everybody got hooked on it.
Yep.
Right, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah, we got hooked on it because what Lisa's not telling you is that she would invite people to come out and play, and her and Chris would play whoever would come out and beat the crap out of them each time that we played. And so, we just have to keep playing harder and harder to try and have a chance to beat them. And so the only way to beat them was to actually separate them into different teams. That was the only way you could actually beat them. So.
But now, oof.
Yeah.
This one.
I don't know. Well, now I've kind of taken Chris's place since he can't come on campus to play, and you and I get a chance to play together. And we're a pretty good team when we play. It's a lot of fun.
You play regularly here?
We do.
Good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as a matter of fact, if you all want to come out and watch us sometime, you're welcome to do that. We usually play on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
And we've had some watchers already.
We have. We're
Yeah.
30 to 6,
Yep.
6-ish, something like that.
Yeah.
And usually it's, our group has just grown.
It has.
I mean, it went from you and I and Scooter and Whitney for the
right.
most part to Joe plays now and
Amy,
Amy
Homer.
plays. Amy, now you should come out and watch Amy play sometime. She's very good
And very competitive.
And she, yes. Yes, she's very
I didn't know if you knew
competitive.
that about Amy, but she's very competitive. She doesn't like to lose to this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I love beating Amy. That's what I'll have to tell you. It's kind of fun. But we really have picked up on that. I mean, and it's neat to see so many residents starting to really enjoy it.
Right.
And then we've got other staff members. I got a chance last Friday to play, and he's here in the room. That's why I'm mentioning it. I got a chance to play with Brian Stroud on my team on Friday. We were playing Destiny and Amber from Transportation. And those girls, they whooped up on us, didn't they, Brian? They whooped us on us for the first 3 games, and I said, one more game. We're not going to let them win this last one. And heck, Brian, I'm telling you what, he rose to the occasion, and we beat them 13-11, didn't we, Brian?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Woo! It was awesome.
It was all Brian, wasn't it?
That's great.
So besides that, I mean, I like to fiddle in the garden and fiddle my yard. As a matter of fact, we talk about 2020 and what a rough year it is. To me, part of this is looking back and saying, we can either look at this as glass is half empty or glass is half full. And so I try my best to look at things as glass is half full. But 2020 has actually been a good year from a lot of perspectives. Mm-hmm. I've gotten closer to my family. I've had the best garden I have ever had in my life this year because I've had time to put towards it. Because I'm not out doing 100 different things on the weekend, trying to go to this party or do this thing or do that, or my son's doing this. I mean, everything's been kind of concentrated at the home. So, I have really been able to enjoy that. So I have picked up some things from this year that have been really good for me. And I've been working on myself here as of late, trying to lose some weight. A lot of you know that. So I've been really trying to lose weight. Lisa and I, we did the keto for a while together, and we lost a good bit of weight from that. And so I've just kind of taken from that and kind of kept on going. But, personally, I've actually liked the fact that life has slowed down a little bit for me personally. So, because I felt like my life was just way too much in the fast zone and before the COVID hit. And I know that nobody wants COVID. I don't want COVID like anybody else does, but there's been some blessings that have come up because of it. And I think you have had some of that, too.
Absolutely.
You already mentioned the RV.
Well, yes. I mean, we'd love to be able to go out. And for me, it's even brought my husband and I think, even closer because it gives us something that we can go and do together.
Yeah.
And our kids are older now. So, let's see. Lily's going to be 23 and Max just turned 20. So I don't have the little ones at the home anymore. So for us, it was nice to find something that we could now go and do together. It's like another season of life for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
If you had all the arrangements made by someone else, you don't have to fool with those, who are the 2 or 3 people you would like to have dinner with?
You want to go first? I'll tell you what, we'll do one at a time. Go back and
Okay,
forth. All
okay.
right? All right, who you want to start with?
For me, it was a couple. So
Yeah.
it was, this may seem strange, but Mary and Joseph.
Now, not Mary and Joseph that work here.
No. Mary and Joseph in biblical times. I think it would be very interesting to sit down with them and really talk about their situation. Because being back then, what did people think about? Here's this woman that is carrying a child, but it's not from Joseph. It's that kind of thing. It would be interesting to really hear what they had to deal with, what they had to manage, knowing all the people around them. I'm sure we're talking about them and things like that. So I just would love to hear from their perspective and their faith of trusting how this came to be. So I think that'd be really interesting. Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, the first one of mine is kind of related to that. I had said I'd always love to be able to meet Jesus and, break bread with him. And I don't know, I think I'd probably be too scared to do that, to be honest with you, if I really sat down and thought about it. But, kind of from the same perspective, what was it like? What went through his mind when he was faced all the time with non-believers and trying to win them over and bring them into Christianity, and just, I just think that would be a fascinating thing. That would have to be longer than a lunch, though, and it would have to be a lunch and a dinner, I think, to be able to get all my questions answered, right? Yeah, so what's your next one?
Next one would be if I could have a meal with my grandma one more time. She passed away several years ago. And just to be able to sit down with her again, she was a pretty special lady in my life.
Yeah, and you and I talked about this because I had said that I would really want to be able to have lunch with my parents again because I miss both of them. And, it was, I got the opportunity, which not a lot of people do, that a lot of you know this, but my parents lived at River Landing for quite a few years. And so that was a blessing and a curse, to be quite honest with you in a lot of ways. But it was great, and I'd love to have lunch with them again. So I'm with you on that one.
Well, we have 3 good restaurants here, so.
Yeah, right. There you
We
go.
could make that happen.
So who was your last one?
Well, my last one was, it's going to seem silly now, but Patrick Swayze. He was like one of my favorite actors, and he's not bad to look at either. So,
I love it. That's good.
that was my third. Yeah.
Now, I wouldn't have picked Patrick Swayze, I can tell you that.
Are you sure, Tom?
No, I'm sure, thank you. I liked him as an actor, but that's not who I would have picked. I was sitting there thinking about it. I think Walt Disney would be a really cool person to sit down with. He had this, I've always appreciated people that have visions like that. He just had this vision that was unshakable, and he just kept going at it. And I just think it would be really cool to sit down and talk to him about, how he developed all that. So
Great. What does a typical day look like to you? Or is there such a thing as a typical day?
let's see. Brian Stroud comes into our office at no. I'm teasing.
Oh,
So we talked about this, right?
we did.
And I think I can answer for both. You jump
Right,
in. I think I can answer for both of us in saying that there is no such thing as a typical day here. I mean, every day is completely different.
Is that good or bad?
Well, it makes things interesting.
I would
that's for
say,
sure.
I like that there's not a typical day.
Yeah,
It's nice that you don't know what's going to be coming your way. I think that's part of just keeping us on our toes too.
Yeah.
We just, we never know. You can't get stale with that. We never know what's coming.
And we make a list at night before we leave about what we're going to do the next day, right?
And then we don't
we're
get
lucky
to-
if we get to one of
We
those
don't get
on
to
the
all
list,
those.
right? But there is one constant that I think that we agree that we do it every day, that I think is a little bit of a secret to the success of our leadership team here, and that is we do a stand-up every morning. Of course, we sit down for it. It's not really
We
a
do.
stand-up. But, there's usually 13 of us, at least pre-COVID there was 13 of us. And we get a chance to talk about what's going on for our day so that everybody kind of has a general idea what hopefully everybody's going to try to accomplish that day or what exciting things might be going on in different areas. But it's really a chance for us to continue to build that relationship with each other as a leadership team. One of the things that my dad had taught me really early was the importance of really being able to have that relationship at the top so that, if all the department heads are understand each other, are friends with each other, and work well with each other, then we're not going to really have the strife between departments. And I've seen this happen in other retirement communities before where there's strife between department heads, so that means there's strife between departments themselves. And we really don't have that. Part of the reason is because if you get mad at another department head, you got to wake up the next morning, you got to see them, and you can stare them straight in the face. And so I don't know how you feel about it.
And I think it just builds that trust amongst all of us. What's also great about the community here is when we do normally have great events here, we all jump into that. It's not where it's just a resident service thing. It's not just a dining thing. We're all part of that. And that comes from us all gelling so well together. If we didn't work well together, well, then our teams wouldn't work well. So it's important that it starts with Tom. I mean, it always has. And
I don't know about that. It's a team effort.
all of us really come together, and a lot of that is that meeting in the morning.
Yeah.
And you try to do this every day?
We do. It's every morning. That's how we started out, and then we go from there.
Yeah.
But it's not just sharing, what's going on here, but it's also, maybe it's my son's birthday, maybe it's my anniversary. You get to know each other in that level as well, and that just helps us build that trust amongst each other.
And even when people are hurting, because, obviously we're not, every we come in, it's not a perfect
Right,
day.
right.
There are times when we're struggling, and, being able to share a little bit about what's going on in your life and having people that are there that are,
Right.
really trying to lift you up or say a prayer for you or whatever. It just,
Absolutely.
it just builds that camaraderie, like you're saying. And I think that's what, I do think that's one of the secrets to our success here.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a little off of this, but do you have a favorite song or a piece of music or a type of music?
Drop kick me, Jesus, through the goalposts of life.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sorry, I just had to say that one, right? Because that was my mother's favorite, I think.
Was it?
So, no, I don't know if it was or not. How about you?
I like country music.
Do you?
Yeah,
Good.
kind of my favorite. But listening on the radio, K-Love.
Yeah.
I like Christian music as well.
Yeah.
So,
My parents, my mother was a huge follower of I think it was used to be called the Gaither Hour. Is that right? Bill Gaither, I think it was. Bill Gaither and his wife. And they had a musical couple that was on there. And some of you might remember or have seen this before, but they were called the Hawaiians. And they were both a husband and wife, and they were from Hawaii, and their new music group was Hawaiians. And they did a song that was called Name Above All Names. And it is, to me, it's funny. I think it's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. And Bill, the Gaithers are actually the ones that wrote the song, but the Hawaiians are the ones that sang it that are just beautiful. So if you ever get a chance to go on YouTube and you're bored one day, look up the Hawaiians, Name Above All Name, I think is what it's called, or something like that. But it's a beautiful song, and so every once in a while I'll go back and listen to it because their voices are just beautiful with each other. So
Good. Well, we're at the end of this, but let me ask you one more question. Is there some question that I should have asked and didn't, or you expected me to ask and I didn't?
So I don't know. Is there, Lisa? Is there a question that we
I was
weren't?
going to say, you're pretty thorough. So.
Yeah, I was afraid that somebody was going to ask me my shoe size, or is this my real hair or not my real hair, or those kinds of things.
But
or,
none of those questions came up,
yeah,
so you're
fortunately,
safe, Tom.
fortunately there wasn't anything that was
No.
really. So no, maybe just to say, and I know you feel the same way. It's such a blessing to be here.
Mm-hmm.
It is such a blessing to be here, especially now that I'm going to be here 18 years. And you got over 20 years service with the organization. Not every day is a perfect day, but I think what we do is so important, and our ultimate goal is always to try and make residents as happy as possible. And happiness is a fleeting thing, and it's a very hard thing to be able to. And sometimes we kill ourselves trying to make residents happy.
Right. Right.
But the reality is we know that we can't make everybody happy under every
And I think that's
circumstance.
one of the challenges we face is
Yeah.
we know, deep down we know we can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
But we want to. I mean,
We
we're a
do.
serving group and we want to be able to make everybody happy, but deep down, we do understand we can't all the time. It's hard saying no to people.
Sure.
But we also have to look at it from the greater good. We have to look at it as a whole. This group might want one thing, but the whole group, it might not be good for the whole.
Yeah.
So just trying to balance that, and we try our hardest of how we can say yes, don't we? I mean, we do. Everything we try
do.
to say yes,
Yeah.
but sometimes we're just not able to do that. But, that's what's so great about being a family here is that I think most everybody understands that. There's give and take. And we always try to find that compromise if we can.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a compromise to be made, we
Right,
try and do
right,
it. Sometimes it's just, and sometimes the answer is, no, we can't do that.
Right.
And there may not even really be a great answer as to why we
Right,
can't,
right.
but we just can't.
Right.
But, we do go to great lengths to try, and even if we can't say yes, that we try and find some sort of compromise or
Right,
give
right.
some of what.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of really great resident suggestions. We've had a lot of great resident
We
suggestions.
have.
I mean, probably 90% of the stuff that we've got in place have come because of resident suggestions
Absolutely.
to us. And so I always feel bad about that a little bit because I know we get a lot of suggestions, and sometimes we are not good about following up on every single suggestion that we're given. just because, and it's not because we don't want to, it's a time thing. We just don't have the time to follow up on every suggestion that we get that comes from the residents. But, you know, as I said, I don't think I could have been blessed any more than to come here as the executive director. And, you know, there's a little bit of a funny story there. Most of you know this, but when I was hired, I wasn't hired as the executive director here first. I was hired as the associate director. A gentleman by the name of Mike Walsh, who unfortunately who is a good friend of mine, who unfortunately since has passed away. He passed away about 1.5 years ago. He hired me to be the associate director, and then right as I gave notice at the retirement community I was at to come up here, he resigned from here and went to work for another retirement community organization. And so I'll never forget that. I got a call from the president at that time of the PHI, which was Bill Pleasance, and Tim Webster, who's now our current president, saying, Tom, I'll never forget, I was down in my office in Charlotte where I was at the retirement community down there. Bill and I need to talk to you about something. And I'm saying, okay, I still have a job that I'm coming to? And they're like, yeah, well, we want to talk to you about that. And I went,
And you're like, oh boy, I
okay.
gave notice
said,
already.
when do you want to talk about it? He goes, well, we want to come up and have lunch with you tomorrow, if that's okay. And I went, oh. I said, okay. So, and that's when they were sharing with me that Mike had resigned and left. And so, you know, something as hard as that was actually ended up being a very good thing for me because I ended up becoming the executive director then. They went through a process of search and everything else, but I had the inside angle because I was already here at that point, and they were already kind of seeing what I was able to do and was capable of. And so I think they probably hired me just because it was more of the devil they knew than the devil they didn't know were bringing somebody else in. But it's been great.
We're glad they did.
And Jerry, thank you for letting us come on and be a part of Furl and
thank you both
being a
for
part of
coming
this.
today.
This is great. Thank you.
We hope that anybody in the audience will join us next Wednesday, the 28th, for the next one. And until then, thank you.
Thank you. I love you all.